Welcome to our company profile. This month we visited Looking Glass Technologies of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Long known as a developer of high-quality products for the likes of Origin and Access, Looking Glass has recently branched off into publishing. Their first self-published title, Flight Unlimited, will be distributed by Virgin Interactive by the time you view this episode of IE.
We try to hire people who are out of control. No, we try to hire people who are inspired to create new things, and they are fun to work with, and they're always pushing, and sometimes they are out of control, but the result is something that no one's ever seen before. I went to school with Paul Neurath, and we always loved games. We just decided to write our own game. That was back in 1982. And we spent 2 years writing Deep Space, which was published later by Sirtec, and wasn't a tremendous hit, but it was a lot of fun to work on, and we did some really great things with technology. And I stayed in, even though that didn't work out, and Paul ended up working with Origin, and I ended up working with EA on Chuck Yeager. We stayed in touch and helped each other out. And after a while, it seemed clear that what we really wanted to do was start our own publishing company. The flight simulator, you'll see a sort of unprecedented level of realism to the point now where real pilots actually enjoy it. Whereas 5 years ago, if you showed a pilot a flight simulator, they would just laugh at you. They'd say, "This isn't anything like my plane." Going onwards, we plan to simulate more and more of human behavior to the point which in 5 or 10 years where we hope to duplicate the cyberspace environment everyone is dreaming about, where you can literally tour through an artificial world, meet people, talk to them, and never really think that you're in an artificial place. You'll just treat it as it is another reality. And that's been my dream my whole life. I was feeling that talking is one of the last problems to be solved because you're almost directly connecting to the other person's intelligence. But maybe arm wrestling them, or fighting them, or giving them objects, or climbing up a castle wall, all those kinds of things we'll be able to handle realistically. Talking, I think the humans will be sort of the kings of the world, and the computer people will be sort of the serfs of the world. But most people want to have a few serfs anyway, so that should work out fine. For the physical modeling, we are actually trying to simulate a human being in the way you might try to simulate a car. We're treating the human as a series of connected joints that have certain springs and forces attached to them. And while that sounds dull, what it means in the game is that when people run, they really, really look like they're running, and they can duck and dive and respond to the environment incredibly realistically. And no one's ever. When there was only one game, everyone in the company knew what they were supposed to do every single day. Now that we're working on actually 3 projects, and we have different departments, it's hard to keep everyone sort of totally focused on what to do. But the good side is that the survival of the company isn't at stake on a daily basis. So we've gone from sort of a happy group of college hackers to someone trying to make a mark on the business world, and I can't say I miss those old days. They were terrifying, to be honest. It was very hard just to stay in business. Honestly, I found programming the most painful thing I've done in my entire life. I was good at it. I was very successful. I created fun products, but it was like I felt like I was Sisyphus or something, pushing this gigantic rock up the hill. And it's such a pleasure working with all these other talented people. I don't actually miss it too hard. Hoping to do 10,000-person simultaneous role-playing games where you can talk to people, meet people, build houses for them, paint pictures for them, write music for them, and in return they might make you a magic sword or give you a map to a secret quest. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It won't have much resemblance to the industry of today.
Ned Lerner and I founded Looking Glass, a precursor of Looking Glass, back in 1983. We worked together out of my house for a number of years. It was really a cottage industry back then, and worked on games. And it wasn't until just about the late 80s that we started to really grow as a development group. And it was in about 1991, 92 where we started to hire employees and grow. And we changed our names. We merged. Ned Lerner had Lerner Research, and I had Blue Sky Productions, and those two companies merged in 1992 to become Looking Glass Technologies. So that we would do all the programming, the artwork, the design, and even the playtesting and debugging of it, and we would give a final disc to a publisher, and they would take it and put it out on the marketplace. Very simple, innocent time for our industry. And of course that's now changed quite a bit. But our roles evolved from being the person or people to create the game to trying to manage the process, almost like a producer role or director role of bringing together teams who would create the projects. And for us, it was a good role. We enjoyed it quite a bit. Moving away, I think we had, between the two of us, coded far too many lines of assembler and C that enough for us. One of the things that we've been fortunate for us is that essentially without exception all of our titles have been successful titles, and we've had some very significant titles that have really been breakthroughs, new categories, and for us it's always been a source of just excitement to be able to create new kinds of titles that open up new areas for the industry as we can sort of explore where the industry is growing.
So we concentrate on absolutely maximizing real-time interaction with wherever you are, whether it's a flight simulator or an adventure game or a role-playing game. We want to try to create that for the game player while they're there. Many of the other companies in our business are using the cinematic model. They are also using computer-generated images, but many of those images are done offline. They're pre-rendered images using very sophisticated machinery, and they're very nice and very high-resolution images, but in fact they're pre-recorded. It's pre-scripted, and ultimately the experience, the game-playing experience that you have is to a great extent predetermined. And I think what happens is that people are drawn to those images. They're great images. They have high resolution. They have color. They have all of the things people want to see. That's the kind of goal that you go after. And I think that people have been seduced by that, and I think that they have, to a great extent, forgotten that ultimately it's an emotional experience that you have to have. It's Dark Forces, where probably serves as the most recent example, where it isn't a question of getting an image or getting the same images that are used in the cinematic product and the movie product and kind of making sort of a dumb game out of it. I think it'll be much more about concept. For example, in Dark Forces, the Star Wars theme, the Dark Forces game is not about a particular adventure. It's about an environment that's great.
You know, Underworld, in my opinion, and hey, I get to say this because it was my fault, so I can blame myself. In my opinion, Underworld's big problem was we had this text system, and then we had this map system, and then we had this combat system, and we had this exploration system. They're all very discrete. And I think System Shock does a much better job of making that one integrated, immersive experience where it's all there on screen all the time. You never have to break the fiction. You never have to break the pacing. It's just one continuous thing. Sort of said a couple years ago, hey, like a flight simulator would be fun. And this Terra Nova sort of outdoor, immersive, sort of squad-based infantry thing would be fun. And hey, let's do sort of an indoor 3D cyberpunk sort of thing. And really there isn't much overlap. So we've sort of had to all become generalists at some level, you know, to get the products we want. And okay, we want to get reusable engines that are extensible, but we want several of them. Like, we don't want an engine we use for everything. Like, that is not the goal. That is explicitly not what we are trying to do. We do, however, want to take something like System Shock and evolve it. It's unclear what we're doing next. One of the things we really feel as a company is that the key thing on a project is that the entire team is psyched about it. And we have more proposals floating around in product development at the moment than we are ever going to get to, even if we, all go to Siberia for 10 years and just write code. I think that personally I'm very interested in doing another role-playing game in the next, 3 years.
Game sound systems at this point are still pretty limited, so we wanted to come up with the best way we could to get the realistic sound of the plane. So what we started with is most of them are exotic stunt planes, from Germany and Russia and so forth. So Tom Streit, who's the other audio guy, and myself went to Florida to the importer with our portable DAT machine, and they strapped us into these stunt planes, and we, with the mechanic, actually wired contact mics into the engine compartment and then into the cockpit, and went up and did all the stunts and so forth, and just recorded the whole thing. So that some stuff that we just actually captured ourselves, or I would walk around my apartment and bang on pots and pans and record the sounds of my VCR, like loading a tape, and then pitch that down an octave and mix it with some other stuff to get like machinery noises.
We had the World Aerobatic Champion endorse it kind of free of charge for us. Usually you pay for an endorsement from someone, and this guy saw it in France and he flew it. And one of the airplanes in the game is the airplane that he flies now. And he came away from it saying, "Gosh, that's just right. That's right." I'm obsessively tweaking the flight models so that the hordes of pilots on the net who are going to fly it and say, it stalled a knot and a half too soon and it doesn't have that little shutter, which are things that no other flight model has ever been so precise to actually allow them to judge before, are right. I actually went ahead and bought a sailplane and decided that I would consign myself to eating rice and beans for the next few years. And I went flying it, and it was just like flight. And so it's as if my hobby has disappeared. We did too good a job, and that's kind of spooky. So maybe I'll take up scuba diving now. I'm not really sure. One of the most important things that you can do in our medium is to provide somebody with an experience that they can't have elsewhere. And that understanding what it is that comes out of the box and out of the speakers, and how it is that people perceive that sitting there in that chair, is extraordinarily important. So you pay attention to how the experience is getting across, then you can do something very, very powerful. I've been very shocked when, as I've said many times before, office manager candidates and people who have no interest in video games whatsoever, or perhaps even no interest in flying, or are scared of airplanes, come and become addicted to flight. Everybody is clamoring for an air combat product, and that's hard. That's hard because air combat has virtually nothing to do with the kinds of products that are out there right now. In much the same way that I felt when I began this product that flying an airplane has nothing to do with the flight simulators that are out there now.
The terrain renderer in Terra Nova is one of the neatest things about it. What we're able to do is give texture map realism and detail up close to the player while still able to render a very large area. So, for example, we're rendering all the way out in the distance to show mountains, but you can really walk right up to those mountains and it'll be rendered in the same detail as the stuff right next to you when you get there. It's not like a backdrop or anything, so that it looks really good. It's a science fiction game in which you and your squad mates are in powered battle armor with various weapons mounted on you and go out on planets and fight the bad guys. The plot actually takes place on a different star system, on the Centauri star system, and you've colonized this system like a while back as sort of a separate entity, and now the evil Earth government is coming and trying to annex you again, so it's a fight for your freedom. We thought it would be neat to do a science fiction type game, and having these powered battle armor, or PBAs, gives us a lot more flexibility and fun than just like going around in tanks or whatever. It's really neat to go around and watch people actually walking around and dealing with them as humans rather than as, you know, these impersonal beings in tanks or whatever. What we're doing here is actually doing a physical model of the human body in which every frame of the game we're looking at all the joints and the limbs and the forces and the stresses on those in real time and computing the location of all the joints for the next frame, so then each frame we can update basically the skeleton of our PBA and sort of drape a 3D model over that. The exciting thing is that we're not previously capturing motion at all. It's all real-time physical simulation. Nothing is done sort of offline, capturing motion from before. And so Seamus, our physicist guy, has done lots of work in trying to come up with a model of the human body that's, you know, has all the detail and yet is really fast and really robust and can deal with all the kind of things that people can really do when they walk around. What happens is, at runtime, if someone wants to move forward, we give him a force forward, and he will naturally want to put his foot forward to keep his balance, and then his foot will hit the ground, and the ground will transmit a force through his foot to the rest of his body, and his body will adjust, and he'll keep on doing that over and over again as he walks. And when you do that over many frames, you get a person walking and actually reacting to the terrain. It looks really neat.